So Chip Brown has covered Texas 𝗧𝗘𝗫𝗫 for a long time. Chip Brown 247. He does a show every single day. Lance is on there a lot. It is always good to see you in person, though.
Hey, it's good to be here. I'm getting to live the life that you all have led for the last 17 years.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's
nice of you to share.
Yeah. We're glad Texas could be here. I mean, the Texas fans, though, it's got to be the dream come true. You go to a conference, and year one in that conference, you can exert your dominance and win the conference. I mean, that's the dream scenario.
Well, I'll tell you, Steve Sarkisian's done a good job. I mean, he laid out a plan for everything with the UT officials when he interviewed for the job. He talked about, building the team with big guys in the trenches, getting bigger inside and getting faster on the outside. He even talked about, building culture, how he was going to do it. And so when I went back last year to talk to the UT officials who interviewed him as they were getting ready to play in their first college football playoff, had just won the Big 12 championship, they said even in the 5-7 season, Sarkisian was hitting the marks in terms of the plan that he laid out. So I think he deserves a lot of credit. He's obviously hired a good staff. 𝗧𝗘𝗫𝗫𝗫𝗫, the defensive coordinator, had a historically bad defense in that first year in 2021, and everyone was like, this is not going to work. There was murmurs that he wanted Pete Golding, but Nick Saban, after Sarkisian took Jeff Banks, Saban was like, enough.
Yes.
You're not taking any more. Even though I don't think Saban was crazy about Pete Golding.
It was kind of weird. He just
didn't want to start.
Pete has been really good this year, by the way, Pete Golding.
At Ole Miss.
Yeah, they've been fantastic.
So, and obviously now, flash forward, the Texas defense, I would argue, is the best in college football. And 𝗧𝗘𝗫𝗫𝗫𝗫 has had different guys with him. Jeff Choate, then Johnny Nansen comes in. And I think he works well with everybody because he's egoless. I don't think he wants to be a head coach. That's a blessing because then you've got Sarkisian as the offensive play caller. He's the head coach. He's not going anywhere. If you've got a defensive coordinator who's kind of like the Mickey Andrews to Bobby Bowden and wants to be there, you get that consistency, you get that carryover. And right now, they're playing really well together. They have a really tight bond. I think this Texas team is hungry for the opportunity to see this Georgia team again, because everyone looks at that game and says, see, Texas is no good. I think that was their aberration game. That was we were too comfortable. We just got hit in the mouth. We got to go back to work, and they've gone back to work. Added a running game. Quinn Ewers is healthier, playing better, not great yet, because we have seen him. You all saw him play at an elite level in Tuscaloosa last year.
Yeah.
He was throwing the deep ball. He was seeing the field. So everyone's been waiting to see that again, obviously, if you're a Texas fan. And so we'll see, because Carson Beck's playing better. 11 touchdown passes, no picks, last 3 games. Let's get it on.
Do you get the feeling, any of this leaking in as you've landed here in Atlanta, that it's old school SEC versus Texas? Do you get the feeling that maybe there's not a lot of things that unite one fan base to another in this conference? Is there a chance that in the deep corner of their mind tomorrow that Alabama fans will be cheering for Georgia, that Auburn fans will be cheering for Georgia, that Tennessee fans will be cheering for Georgia, Florida fans for Georgia, because you guys are the new kids?
I get that sense talking to you all.
Yeah.
Because Texas doesn't know any better. They're just like, hey, we're here. How's everybody doing?
Yeah.
And everybody's like,
Thanks for inviting us, guys.
yeah, we're doing fine.
Yeah. Thank you.
Go sit in your corner. Okay?
Yeah.
So it is interesting because, that, and talking to Lance and some of the guys, it seemed like if there was one unwritten thing about this SEC season at SEC Media Days, like if you could have poured truth serum in all the coaches, it would have been, don't let Texas come in here and, keep this roll going that they're on.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we invited you to our house and you took the master bedroom. I mean, that's what it feels like for SEC fans at Texas.
Truthfully, it feels like the commissioner gave you the master bedroom. I mean, this schedule, you've played one. Now, I'm saying this as a guy who grew up an Alabama fan and saw. I mean, you played Oklahoma and Vandy, who beat Alabama, so that's two teams on your schedule. But the schedule you've got for not only this year but for next year, the return games seems to be an easier path than some other teams. So it was like Greg Sankey said, okay, if you join the league, we'll punish Oklahoma and give you a couple of lean years to come in. Boom, there you go, a couple of gimmies.
For sure. And I think one thing you have to look at for Texas, they've been trying to schedule tough non-conference opponents. Next year, they're playing Ohio State. You know, they played Michigan coming off a national championship, and Michigan didn't recruit a quarterback.
Yeah.
How does that happen?
That's right.
So
you guys had 3.
Right.
You didn't have 1. Yeah.
Right. So I get it. Everybody's like, they haven't played anybody. They haven't beaten anybody. But they've beaten the teams that beat the other teams in the SEC. You know, they beat Kentucky. Kentucky beat Ole Miss. They beat Vanderbilt. They beat OU, as you mentioned, who beat Alabama. So their only loss is to Georgia, and that's a good loss.
Do you think Chip Brown is with us? Chip Brown 247 on Twitter covers the Texas Longhorns and all the college football for 24/7 Sports. He's with us here at the College Football Hall of Fame on the JohnstonRVCenter.com hotline. Do you think there was almost a wink and a nod between Sankey and Texas? Like, listen, we've got to send you to College Station year 1. There is no way around that. We're not going to give you a back-breaking schedule. That'll be our deal with you, but you're going to College Station year 1.
I don't know about we're not going to give you a back-breaking schedule. I mean, they did do that, but there was no doubt that game was going to be in College Station because A&M never wanted Texas in the league.
That's right.
They even kind of did a little straw poll amongst the schools before telling A&M, hey, Texas and OU want into the conference.
Yeah.
But I think they did a little straw poll to make sure that the votes were there before they told A&M, because A&M immediately leaked it to the Houston Chronicle right in the middle of SEC media days.
That was a massive
in
leak,
the summer of 2021 in an attempt to get momentum against it. And it was already too late. So there was no doubt Texas was going to College Station. That was the consolation prize to A&M for, sorry, Texas is coming in, but hey, you get the first home game.
Yeah.
And it was as wild of a scene as I've been in.
Well, Texas took the air out of the stadium, but leading up to it, it seemed pretty wild.
They're roasting a Longhorn steer on a spit, and R.C. Slocum was supposed to, I didn't stick around, was supposed to cut the horns, saw the horns off of that thing at 5 o'clock before the game. I mean, it was as intense. I mean, Texas OU, I tell you guys all the time, you have to go to the Texas OU game right in the middle of the State Fair. It is the greatest game day atmosphere in sports. And it's wild because you got both fan bases right on top of each other, 50-50 in the Cotton Bowl. This was all maroon. They didn't sell any tickets. There were, I mean, the only burnt orange in that stadium were the allotment tickets.
Right.
And so nothing made it a secondary market. A&M fans took them all.
Nothing. Yeah. And they had one, former A&M star after another introduced on the field before the game. Jackie Sherrill. I mean, it was just,
Who, by the way, cut the balls off a Longhorn
right.
time. Yeah,
he did.
Yeah.
When he was at Mississippi State.
That's right.
And so Johnny Manziel's there. It was wild. Yeah. And I have to say, I was like, this is a big time atmosphere. And the Longhorns, who are the home team in the SEC championship game, but are wearing their road uniforms.
Tell more about that, because we were talking about the fact that they're not going to allow Bevo here, which I'm sure among Texas fans is a big slap in the face. They're wearing the white uniforms by choice. You told me last night, we were hanging out watching the end of the game last night. You said Texas is treating this like a road game. They are selling their players. We're going into a hostile environment. This is not a 50-50 game.
That's right. I mean, You're going to Atlanta to play Georgia.
That's right. What do you think it's going to be? Yeah.
Right. So we are the road team. We've won 11 straight true road games. They're looking at this as a true road game, so they've opted to wear their white, their icy whites, they call them.
It's a great uniform.
It's a great uniform,
yep.
And their mindset is us against the world, embrace the hate, which is sort of what they've been doing because they were also hated their final year in the Big 12.
No doubt.
So they're used to being surrounded with hate.
Is the Bevo thing a big deal among fans that they won't let Bevo in? Is that like a?
I mean, truth be told, no.
Yeah.
But I mean, you almost feel sorry for the steer getting driven around, thousands of miles. But
And then he doesn't get to come to the
he
SEC
doesn't get to come.
championship.
But how? We've been to the Superdome. There is a lot of space beyond the sidelines. I've not walked the sidelines of Mercedes-Benz
Pretty
Stadium.
tight. And Jim made a good point. They sell those premium lower level seats.
They have suites,
Yeah.
field level suites,
Field level
like
suites.
they have at Cowboy Stadium.
Yeah. High dollar.
And you got 2 television sets that are already there with the SEC network and ESPN.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I'm sure it's a legitimate reason not having him here.
limited space.
Like, I don't think the SEC would go out of their way to screw Texas. I mean, that's
Right.
So I think it's legitimate that there's really not room for a massive cow.
Well, you say the field suites.
Oh.
That's everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some suite holder's not going to have a giant steer
Could you imagine a steer tail just
blocking its path.
just whipping in that?
I can't believe you guys got offended that they were roasting a full Longhorn on a spit before the game. I mean, we know where steaks come from.
Right. But they left the horns, the Longhorns on it. And, of course, the head of the steer was still on it. So it was.
So, hey, by the way,
they burned Saban in effigy down in Baton Rouge.
and that was his first visit back to Baton Rouge, 2008, when Alabama played down there. Burned him in effigy, and it was a straw Saban.
Like this.
And they had just built it on a wooden cross. So nobody thinks through this, right? The
Right.
straw burns like that. Now you're just got a burning cross out in the middle of the field.
Yeah.
Everybody was like,
Yeah. Ooh.
wow, we did not think our way through
Knock
this.
that down real quick. Knock that down real
Somebody
quick.
get that fire out.
The show being brought to you by our great friends at MyBookie, mybookie.ag. We're about to talk to Chip about the actual game on the field tomorrow inside Mercedes. MyBookie.ag is the place you can go play tonight's championship games and tomorrow's games as well.
Yeah, Jack State, a 4-point favorite tonight in the Sun Belt Championship against, or not the Sun Belt, the CUSA Championship against Western Kentucky. It is Tulane, a 4.5-point favorite in the American Championship against Army, and then Boise in the Mountain West Championship, 4.5-point favorite over UNLV. As we talk about Texas and Georgia, Texas holding it a 3-point favorite next door here at Mercedes-Benz Stadium tomorrow afternoon. You can play all those games at mybookie.ag. Code next round when you sign on, and they give you a 300% deposit bonus for use in the casino. 300% deposit bonus for use in the casino at mybookie.ag when you use code next round. Mybookie.ag, code next round. Mybookie.ag, code next round. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with mybookie.ag.
And our friends at Rowback, different shades of blue, but we've got our Rowback quarter zips on. You get great hoodies and everything under the tree. Promo code TNR20 there. TNR20, 20% off that purchase. Rowback.com for all the active wear. If you crave activity, crave Rowback. TNR20, Rowback.com. All right, before we talk about the actual game, I feel like potentially we could kill conference championship games this weekend because of the way the playoffs are moving forward. Or we could. Did Lance bring up to you when he was on your show the Joel Klatt scenario that he painted for us? I'll redo it for our viewers that wasn't with us, and you tell me what you think. Klatt believes we got one more year of this 12-team format, and then he believes we'll go to 14 teams, and that the SEC and the Big Ten will be guaranteed 4 spots each, locked in, and the ACC and the Big 12 will get 2 each, one group of 5, and then Notre Dame will have a spot. That's your 14 teams. And that on this Saturday tomorrow, you'd have 1 and 2 playing for one of the byes in the Big Ten and the SEC. So those would be the only 2 conferences that could get the byes. 1 and 2 would play here in Atlanta.
And both those teams are locked in the playoffs,
and
right?
they're both locked in the playoffs. Then 3, the third-place team, would host the 6th-place team in the SEC on Saturday, Championship Saturday, and the 4th-place team would host the 5th-place team on Championship Saturday, and the winner of those 2 games get the other 2 bids. So it'd be like an NFL playoffs. All SEC standings would go to 9 games, 9 Big Ten games. Big Ten would do the same things on their campuses, and no more selection process. NFL style, you just play your way in, and really the out-of-conference games mean really nothing at that point. What do you think?
That's where we need to go. Because I've been saying since the whole realignment of 2010 that the power conferences had to come together, collectively bargain. That's where the most money is. Do away with the conference championship games, even do away with one of the regular season games, get to a 16-team playoff. because that's where the most money is. We always end up where the most money is, especially now. Now that because everybody dropped the ball along the way, if they'd have done this, back in 2010, 12, whatever, you could have given a $5,000 stipend to student athletes and then had it scale from there. Now we're at God knows what some of these
$1 million
high school recruits got on signing day Wednesday. So now you need money more than ever. So I think, 14 on the way to 16, and
do you like the playoff aspect of it?
I do.
To where 3 would play 6,
Get rid of the committee because it's great television, it's drama, it's what are they thinking, all that. That's great. But when you look at this, you got to kind of get the commissioners out of the way, or they've got to become part of a panel that's looking out for the greater good of college football. And I get it. The SEC and the Big Ten rule the world, and they should have a really important, loud voice. But what do we want it to be? Do we want it to be 34? Do we want it to be 40?
Right.
Because that's what we ultimately have to decide. How many kids are getting into the club?
Could you imagine Saturday coming up? The championship game would be the prime time on ABC, but that first game out of the gate would be 6, South Carolina in Knoxville this year, with that 11 o'clock ABC game, and the 2:30 game would be Ole Miss in Tuscaloosa playing Alabama, and all of them are for the spot. Those first 2 games are win or go home, and then the last one's for a championship and a bye or the end of the playoffs.
Well, it sounds great in the SEC.
Yeah.
Doesn't sound great in the Big Ten.
Yeah, because in the Big Ten, I mean, they've got their 4 teams locked in, and I'm going to have to do this off the top of my head. I think you would have Indiana, Illinois.
It would be
Oregon,
sixth place at number 3, Ohio State. So that would be a blowout.
I can't even remember who 6 is.
It could be Minnesota.
I think it's Minnesota.
Yeah.
And then you're going to
Washington, one of those 2.
Somebody like that. And then you're going to have Illinois at Indiana. Much less sexy.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no doubt that's much less sexy.
That one probably doesn't make Fox. That was probably on the Big Ten Network.
Right. So, I mean, that tells you right there, the SEC is definitely the preeminent conference. I mean, that's what it is. The Big Ten they were the first to, get the Big Ten Network going, and they've secured their place. They've got tons of money rolling in. But the brand of football is not up to SEC standards.
Well, there's a chance I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
Well, my dad asked a question. My dad, watching back home in Jacksonville, just texted me. If you do this, then you kind of do away with the rankings, I would assume. How do you determine Notre Dame's spot in it? That's a good question that my dad just asked.
Maybe they go by the AP poll or something. Yeah.
You got to figure out a way to determine Notre Dame's spot in this. I don't know if they have to be 10-2, 9-3 to be. I don't know.
Yeah, they would have to come up with something. But it's a great point.
But it's your fly in the ointment there. How do you get Notre Dame?
It is amazing that Notre Dame gets all these caveats.
Yeah.
Or maybe
remember when Charlie Weiss was the coach there?
Oh yeah, they were awful. But
maybe that's the force. Maybe that's to force them into the Big Ten, and that's when we do realignment again. Who knows? On the game on the field, there's the potential, and maybe a likely potential, that Texas Georgia could play 3 times. The second go around, how does Sark feel about having to play them again, getting to play them again after losing to them the first time?
Well, I think Sark took really good notes in his time in Tuscaloosa. So everything's an opportunity. So I think he's got this team really excited about the idea of getting a chance to show everybody that was not our best day at the office. We got more to show. And Sark is to blame for that too. I think he went into that game a little comfortable. He wasn't using all the shifts and motions that he normally does. And the running game wasn't there. And I asked him about it. He got defensive. And then all of a sudden, the last 4 games, they ran it 31 times against Florida, 41 against Arkansas, 47 against Kentucky, and 50 against A&M. And he was, determined to get that running game going. And they have changed some of the blocking, whether they zone or man, certain runs, because certain offensive linemen are better at gap than they are at zone. And it's working. So I think Texas is excited. I think Sarkisian's excited. And I'm really interested to see if this Texas defense gets the recognition I think that it deserves, because number 1 in pass defense, number 2 in scoring defense. They third in the country in interceptions. They're getting pressure on the quarterback. They're stopping the run even without 𝗧𝗘𝗫𝗫 and Byron Murphy. So I think that's the reason that this is going to be a much more competitive game.
Yeah, the way Texas is running it versus the way Georgia's playing the run is a big mismatch right now, it would appear.
Yeah, and that's they're doing it with 𝗧𝗘𝗫𝗫 Wisner, who opened the year.
What is he, 14?
Third string at best.
At best.
At best.
And then all the injuries just bumped in and blew up.
Injuries and fumbles.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny now. We really thought, I remember us doing the stories, God, Texas lost another running back.
Yeah.
It's bad news for the Longhorns. And, man, they're running it exceptionally well right now.
And he ran it 33 times for 186 yards against A&M, and it was rock'em sock'em robots. I mean,
No
that
doubt.
kid, he was in like 5 car accidents that day.
Yeah.
And to have to turn around and then, come here and play this Georgia defense after what, Michael Williams and Walker and, Smale London, London didn't play in that game. So that'll be an interesting rematch, I think, because the Texas offense was awful in that game.
All right, Chip, we get ready for it, and another night in town before we finally kick it off tomorrow at 3 o'clock Central Time. But Texas is here. They're in the SEC. We waited for it, and now they got a chance to take home the trophy.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know how the rest of the SEC feels about it.
No, I can.
Not great.
Not great.
No, go ahead. Take.
Not great.
But it's hard for the rest of the SEC to get behind Georgia, too. So I think it would have been better for the rest of the SEC if somebody other than Georgia or Alabama was playing Texas.
Okay.
They could have gotten behind Ole Miss and Lane, right?
Yeah, probably so.
So it's I think the rest of the SEC is torn. They're tired of seeing Georgia and Alabama have success, but they also don't want to see the newcomer have success.
Yeah.
The outsider.
Yeah, the outsider.